If you wake up tired all the time, even if you're getting 8 hours sleep a night, there may be something more going on for you, something more emotional, something deeper. I want to get into this in this live stream today, and I'm going to be doing a whole week worth of a series on bettering our lives and tackling some of the common issues that we find in modern life. We put up with a lot of stuff, don't we? I think we put up with a lot of stuff unquestioned, and then we come to accept it as our normal experience. Before I get into most of this discussion today, I want to welcome all of you joining. You're either joining here on the live stream, you've scrolled past it, or perhaps you are watching the replay. Hello, Soren, great to see you. And occasionally I'll look across my screen if we've got questions. I'd love to answer questions. I'd love to interact with you as we discuss this whole area, which is why do we feel tired all the time? It's probably one of the most common things. Hello, Lily. Great to see you here. I'm here because I just text a friend and I'm really exhausted. I'm sorry to hear that. And then the notification. I love the synchronicity there. I think one of the reasons, even if we are getting what they say is the optimal amount of sleep a night, which is eight hours, some of us are feeling exhausted all of the time. And not only is it physical exhaustion, I would argue it's emotional exhaustion. Think of it like this. Everything has energy to it. We're talking about having more energy. Hello, James. Great to see you. Having more energy. Now, we hope after we sleep that we replenish that energy, we restore that energy, and then we've got it for the next day. But what we find over and over again is that we're fatigued. Some have even chronic versions of this. And I believe there is always a deeper layer to it. What we tend to have to do as a survival mechanism in life, we tend to, and we do this from an early age, we're actually conditioned to do this from an early age, is we are told by our parents, our peers, our teachers to sit down, shut up, listen. And we're subtly conditioned over our course of our life to suppress, to be quiet, to bottle down emotions, to not really talk about it. And particularly now in an age that's ever increasingly busy. It's not a person I know that's not busy. We're constantly scrolling on our devices. We've got so many voices, so much noise, so much to compete with, even on social media, so many voices talking. And as I've had a lot of time of introspection and getting quiet and doing much less communicating on here, I've had a real chance to evaluate the condition people find themselves in. Particularly here in the metaphysical community, I've spoken about this before, in the spiritual community, those that are at least spiritually awake and aware, we get caught on a merry-go-round of searching. It might be, I spoke about this today, it might be the meditation path, it could be the yogic path. We're searching for something that we feel is missing. And very rarely do we get enough space, get enough silence to go within and really address the emotional, it might be emotional grief or emotional fatigue or hidden grief or suppressed trauma. What happens over the course of one's life if we don't deal with our emotions? And I'll talk about this later, the power of talking about your emotions. And very few people get to do this in a group setting. This is why I work one-on-one with people with talk therapy. Because what talk therapy does, it's very little about the facilitator, and it's more about the individual that's coming to be able to be, one, they need to be comfortable with the person that they work with, but really it's about their process of getting out the emotional, the thought stream, the mental chatter and noise, and they're hearing themselves articulate the issues they're in, and through that safe environment, much healing can take place. See, I would argue you're way better to do something personal with somebody like that and do a form of talk therapy than you are to do a workshop or a class or anything collectively, because it's about you. And this isn't about being self-indulgent, but rather it's about, if we experience healing ourselves, then we have the capacity to help others in their healing journey. It's the reason why I got into this work over 6 years ago. My objective, my focus was I wanted to help people. And I've worked with different methods. I've evolved personally in my offerings to help people do that very thing. And the number one thing I know, because I've seen it time and time again, is when people are given a place to be seen and heard. And I think that is one of the reasons why so many people suffer in life, because they don't feel seen. They don't seem heard. It may be in their romantic relationships. It might be in family dynamics. It could be in the workplace. They feel invisible. I've observed this, particularly those probably over the age of 60. Many of them say to me, Paul, I feel invisible. As soon as I aged, suddenly it was like society doesn't see me anymore. Or you might be lacking in self-esteem, so you're projecting to the world a level of confidence that's lacking, and then it's an unconscious barrier. So it's so important that we do the work, that we do the inner work. And healing, as I've said many times before, is not a destination, but rather a journey that we all must travel. Now, I know instant healings exist. I've witnessed them. But more often than not, healing is a progression. It's a daily walk. It's, when it comes to trauma and anxiety and grief, it's walking through day by day, releasing those things that no longer serve, those things that are holding us back. Now, perhaps for you, Soren and Lily and James and anybody else that's in here, why don't we take this opportunity to talk about some of the things that we think are contributing if we're feeling tired, if we're feeling exhausted, even if we are getting enough sleep? What are some of the things? I know for me, it's a lack of space, if I am giving out too much, seeing too many clients, not getting adequate time to get outside, to go for a walk, to look after my physical body, and that's a big one I want to address as well. How are our diets? Are we exercising? Are we nourishing our bodies with the right foods? Now, of course, if you're just surviving, it's really hard, and I'll get to your comment in a minute there in a second, James. When you are trying to survive, it might be trauma, it might be grief. Of course, it's very hard to focus on some of the basics. I would say it's probably most pivotal to do it in those moments, but I get it because I've been there myself. And one of the reasons that I am grateful for the many challenges I've walked through, and I've had more than most, is that it gives me the empathy, it gives me the compassion and the understanding because I've walked the road. And so when I hold space for another, I myself have been in that space. In fact, I'll share this something personal. I still do talk therapy for myself. Sometimes it's fortnightly, sometimes it's monthly, but that in itself is pivotal to my own sense of being, sense of health, and it allows me to do the work and hold the space I do for other people. James says, we can lose our sense of self-worth if we don't feel seen or heard. We can end up feeling like we're not worthy at all. And see, this is one of the biggest deceptions, isn't it? We take in life and the feedback that we often get in the mind, this is the area of the soul. I think it's made up of the mind, being your physical brain, your mind, your thinking life, your will, and your emotional life, and that's separate to your spirit, which you are. But that area of the soul is where this battle takes place. And the thoughts come. And we tend to live by our emotions. See, when we lack discipline, we believe every emotional feeling that we have. We believe every negative thought that comes into our mind. And when you walk your life that way, who knows, you're going to suffer. So as we learn the skills, as we submit ourselves to something as scientifically actually proven as talk therapy, we have a space to process and to navigate that experience. We build up the musculature, if you like you would go to the gym, that helps your bones become strong. When I lift weights in the gym and I build up my musculature, I'm also helping my bone strength. When I nourish my body, I'm also making my body fit and healthy. And if I have a fit and healthy body, I'm going to prevent a lot of negative implications if I hadn't invested. And so many people, when it comes to their emotional health, their sense of well-being, they're neglecting themselves. And we often get in this pattern, don't we? We blame another. We might blame our parents. We might blame our workplace, our boss, our emotional relationships. And I said this to someone very honestly the other day, the only person that is responsible for your happiness is yourself. The only person that's responsible for my happiness is myself. So this is the area I really want to focus on, at least over the next couple of weeks, is how can we do some things in our lives that are going to flick the switch? Because what happens if we don't flick the switch, we end up in this area of neuroplasticity where we play out predictable programs. We repeat. We live on life. We live our life like it's a repeat playlist on Spotify. And often we're stuck on a playlist that we don't like anymore. And so this is why we have to invest in ourselves. And by investing in yourself, you're really investing in all of those around you, because when you transform, the world around you begins to mirror back to you that which is what you've become. Now, James, thank you for being so engaging in the chat, and I will read. Let me move my screen and I will read your comments. And if anybody has any questions and would like to engage, even if you're watching the replay, I would love to listen to what you have to say. Feeling tired, this is from James, because life seems to be going faster and busier and not giving time to love and nurture ourselves. There is a lot happening in the cosmos too, astrology and those things that affect us. I had a couple of great chats today in person. I went to two different coffee shops and had two different chats with two different people. And I really value those opportunities to really sit down and to listen to what others need and what they're going through. And the individual that I caught up with, he sort of asked me about the areas of astrology and some other spiritual things. And I naturally felt intuitive to lead the conversation back to really what is important. See, we get distracted intellectually. We go down rabbit holes and we want to research certain things that really don't have a lot of bearing on our own emotional life because we find them interesting, and they end up being distractions. And then often I get emails like this. People get a diagnosis that's unfavorable, and then they have to walk through where that all came from. Sometimes it stems from unforgiveness, from toxic emotions that have been built and suppressed over many years. So let's get to a place with our if we talk about expanding our consciousness, let's begin with creating a healthy soul, which is a mind, will, and emotions. Let's work on that area. Because I believe that, when we're healthy and vibrant, then the world begins to be positively affected by us. And never underestimate your effect on the world. You don't need to be jumping on a live like this, doing a public presentation to affect people around you. The everyday acts that come from a place of love and kindness can sow seeds into people's lives well beyond your own comprehension. I've seen this time and time again. In fact, I think it's more valuable to do that than to jump in front of a camera. A lot of people jump, I think, in front of a camera these days. It might be on social media, it could be on YouTube, it could be on Instagram, and they're not really adding value to people's lives. In fact, it's often the very opposite of that, isn't it? But by them being on there might be damaging someone's sense of self. I think many of us have fallen into the trap of comparing our lives to other people. It might be people in our own lives. It could be people that we're seeing online that are absorbed in their own story, and those stories can affect us negatively. But when you, and I'll speak directly to you, James, when you really find inner peace, when you know what your value is, and let me tell you, for every single person watching or listening to this, you have intrinsic, say that with me, intrinsic. You have intrinsic value. The fact that you're breathing, you are an expression of the divine. The very word inspiration means God breathed. And yet, so often we forget that, and we live in a place of negative emotion. Life's kind of like this. I'll give you this analogy. Life's kind of like a smorgasbord. It's laid out in front of you, and you really get to pick what you're going to eat. Now, if I go to a smorgasbord and I go straight to all of the fatty and junky food, one, I'll probably have digestion issues as I'm consuming it, and two, I'm not going to get the nourishment that I need. I use the analogy of a smorgasbord because life is tending to be that way. We live in an information age. We're now moving into an age of artificial intelligence, artificialness. I think this stems down, the technology of the artificial isn't just in one area. It's pervasive. It's online. It's through the filtering that people do when they go online. Sometimes now you find that even the reels that pop up on your feed aren't even real people. They're artificial. And often we mistake them for being real people. Lily, thanks for engaging. Let me read your comment here. I'm doing some core belief work, and I found my inner child wants to be heard and seen. I wonder why we have need to be heard and seen specifically in our pain. I wonder why we have this need to be heard and seen specifically in our pain. I know what we don't resolve. See, our early years, our childhood years, they really do shape our soul. Now remember, soul, made up of mind, will, and emotions. The area of the soul really is where we need to be doing the work, the inner work, the healing work. It's in the area of the soul. Now, for many of us, we've come from broken homes. Some of us have come from abusive backgrounds. Some of us have had narcissistic parents, parents that didn't know how to love and meet their own needs, let alone your needs. And so then we have a wounded soul. We spend our lives trying to protect and defend, and we walk around with our guard up. Can you see how much of an issue this presents? How do we feel loved and happy and a part of society when we're protecting ourselves from it? Now, of course, if you do not work at the level of, as you say, the inner child, if we don't work on releasing the anger, releasing the trauma, releasing the pain, we're only going to repeat and repeat and repeat these cycles. How many of you have had talk therapy? Maybe let me know in the comment section, even if you are watching the replay. Of all the work I've done over the years, the number one thing I've benefited from was talk therapy. Now, the only prerequisite, this is where all the good stuff happens, it's not from the level of expertise of the practitioner themselves. It is it's their role to facilitate and hold space for you. It's important that you have a level of synergy and comfortability with that person. But the real work happens, the real healing happens through you, through your processing, through your level to be able to hear yourself speak outside of the internal chatter of your own mind and articulate out what you're experiencing. See, it's really interesting. When you're having self-dialogue, when you're reliving over and over again like a record in your head, you hear your life in a certain way. The negative thoughts, the perceptions, the felt emotional internally. Now, when you have a opportunity through some kind of therapy to speak it out, to articulate it out, it sounds different. And you're able to hear yourself speak out loud, because most of us don't talk out aloud in our own environments. And certainly it's so beneficial to do so in the presence of someone that has empathy, understanding, and will hold space for you. Now, Lily, you've got another one there. I had 10 years of talk therapy, but it didn't help me. Now, I'll say this. Healing, Lily, is a journey, not a destination. Now, I only pose this as a question. Where would you have been without it? Did it help you get through the next day? Did it help you for a season? Were you able to understand yourself better? Because 10 years is a long time. And now you're mentioning IFS and other forms of therapy. Of course, there are many different forms of therapy that are helpful. The great thing about talk therapy is most of us love to talk. Most of us need, and we learn a language because it forms communication, and communication is what helps our whole world work in harmony. In fact, if you're a great communicator, I was taught this when I was doing some of my training, if you're a great communicator in life, you tend to excel in whatever industry you are, because you have an ability to connect and to communicate with other people. So I think communication is really, really important. And talk therapy is such a great way of releasing the toxic emotions. Now, let me come back to you, Lily, with this, because I know you've obviously done a lot of work, IFS, talk therapy, you've dealt with your emotions. This is something I remind myself often. It's hard to accept because I think there are those that proclaim that they offer healing, or you arrive in some kind of utopian state. It doesn't mean you can't reach peace and contentment. I'm not saying that. But healing is a journey and a process. And most of us have to walk that out. Now, of course, it would be easier, wouldn't it, if we just all instantly healed? We took a pill, or we had 2 talk therapy sessions and we were in a place of arrival. But I don't know about you. I've just found that life does not work that way. I feel like we've got to walk things out. Some days I sprint, some days I crawl, sometimes I barely walk, and I'm speaking in an emotional sense. But what I do know is that from those experiences, it keeps me in an awareness, in a state of remembering that serves other people. See, I've had many people I've worked with online that influence other people. And I think when you get into a state of self-idolization, thinking you've got all the answers, promoting the self, talking about yourself all the time, I think sometimes you can end up being more of a burden and a hindrance to people rather than someone that really helps deeply. I said something today that I think is important. It's okay to say to another person that you don't have all of the answers. In fact, I think it's very humbling and I think it's important. I was talking about some things today in the area of spirituality. And of course, there are many people in this area that purport to have all the answers and they've got the course on that. And they say, I know all of the answers, I'm an expert. And of course, a lot of people that say they're experts aren't experts at all. And I've seen time and time again, so-called experts can do more damage to an individual because they proclaim that they have all of the answers. You know, it's okay to be humble. It's okay to say, I don't know the answer to that. Or this is what I believe. This is my belief. But I don't have absolute evidence that that is that way. Because I think from the landscape and the perspective in which I look at the spiritual community, and this has been, for me, it's been a sort of a challenging thing for me to walk through, is I see a lot of searching people. And I feel people are constantly searching and never really finding. Who's had that experience? Maybe give me some feedback. And I know, Lily, you're being quite active and it's great to see you're engaging, and I haven't come across you before. My apologies if I have and I'm not remembering. But Lily has been very engaged in the chat. Perhaps some others can do so as well. And it's great to hear that you've had some great results from IFS. Now, why I'm giving people a chance to do that, I want to give you a bit of a preview. So we are going to be talking about thinking. We're going to be talking about anxiety. We're going to be talking about trauma bonding. These are over the next week when we do these live streams. We're going to be talking about burnout. We're going to be talking about feeling unseen. And I know YouTube has allowed a new feature, a new community feature that's going to help me as a creator here converse and have more of back and forth. It's a new feature. I still need to look into it here on YouTube. So I hope to create more of an environment where you can be seen and heard here in this space. Because I much prefer to have a dialogue than me delivering a speech to you. I much prefer that. Now, someone mentioned we've talked about, oh, okay, amazing. Well, my apologies, I didn't remember you, Lily, but thank you for pointing that out. And it's great to see you back. And I hope you find more value in this channel if you have in the past. Now, if you're looking for talk therapy, I work with people individually, but I also have a list of great other practitioners. You might feel more comfortable working with a female. You might feel a synergy and comfortability with me. I certainly offer that. And what I will do is at this point, just as we end, I'm going to leave you my email. And if you're interested in some kind of talk therapy, you can email me directly. And as I say, I can refer you on. I can work with you individually. And what I will also do for those that are watching the replay, you will find my email also on the replay. Thanks for joining. I'll be attempting to do this over the next week, these live streams. If you don't happen to catch them live, the replay will be available for you. I'll see you next time.